Hey guys, how are you? It is Armando, and it has been 1 week, 1 week since I finished my 100-mile race, the Pinhoti 100, the first time ever. Never even done anything close to that. The closest I had done was 50 miles, so I doubled that, and we added mountains to it. So I've been thinking, how do I want to share this? And I figured it's been a week. I've had a week to digest it, and what better way than being out here in a run? So I just finished a run. I've been running for 5 days already, and legs are slowly coming around. No pains, a little soreness on the quads, but I'd like to share my experience, my story of this race. Now, the one thing that I think, or I would like to get across in this story is that more often than not, people think of the 100-mile race of the distance. And I would suggest to you that it is so much more. You see, this 100-mile race starts when you make the decision that you're going to go ahead and do it. And so for me, it was 500 and some days before 509 days. I ran every single day for 509 days leading up to the race. And the other thing that I guess is a misconception or something that people forget or have no concept of, because I didn't, was if you're gonna have a crew, your race isn't just about you. Your crew sacrifices a lot. And in case you don't know what your crew is, basically a group of people that follow you around aid station to aid station, usually anywhere between 5 and 7 miles away, making sure you have whatever it is that you need. There are aid stations that have food and everything, but do you need to change your clothes? Do you need to get your hiking sticks? Do you need to do you want any specific food that they may have for you? You need to change your hat. Do you need to, whatever the case may be? Do you need more body glide so you're not chafing? Your crew plays a big role, and at the beginning when it's daytime, not a big deal. But when they're going through the night with you, except they're not running, they're stressing about getting to the next aid station before you do, so they ensure that you get all that stuff. I didn't realize how much of that was part of the experience. And I think to a certain degree, it actually helped me knowing that this race wasn't just for me. There are a lot of people that's sacrificing just to get me to the finish line. And I felt that at the very least, I owed it to them. But let me just share this walkthrough of the race, this play-by-play. We decided that we wouldn't sleep in a hotel. We would sleep and camp out at the starting line. So the starting line was about an hour and a half drive from where it finished and where most people were staying. And we figured, you know what, let's, instead of stress out in the morning, let's go and camp by the starting line. And sure enough, that's what we got to do. It was cold. It was in the like 40 degrees. So, I mean, cold for us Floridians, for the Miami crew. And, but, we survived. We did what we need to do, got up, and I just stepped up to the starting line as they were going to go. And one of the things that has happened to me in many of my, especially the longer races as of late, is I start off too fast, because my legs can turn faster. My legs can go quick for shorter distances because I'm used to running faster because of college, and I ran 5Ks and 10Ks faster. So I'm used to going out harder. And I would say patience is usually not one of my virtues, funny enough, when I'm doing these longer races, because I think my fitness is up to par with the way I start, and it's not. So I made it a point just to hang back. And to make matters even better for me, within 200 to 300 meters, it went right into a single track trail. So you have almost 300 people trying to funnel into a single track trail. It forms a big bottleneck. So we had to stop, relax, And then my goal was just stay with the group and relax, enjoy. One of the big things that I kind of made a shift with this one is my goal should be to be smiling, to smile, to enjoy the surroundings. And man, was it beautiful. It was absolutely gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. And I remember because they were trying to limit traffic. My crew couldn't go to the first aid station, which was about 5 miles away. They could go to the second one, which all in all was about mile 13. So I wouldn't see my crew for the first 13 miles. And I remember when I first saw them, there was this spike of excitement because it's like, wow, those are my people. They're there. They're there. And I remember seeing my son and my wife and my friend and my dad, and they were like all cheering. What do you need? I didn't even know what I needed. I was like, I'm having fun. I feel great. This is beautiful. I kept saying, this is so beautiful. And I connected with this one guy, and we were talking throughout as we were running, and it was just so much fun. It was lots and lots and lots of fun. So that continued all the way through the day. I felt great. I felt great. It was just so much beauty all around. But somewhere around mile 30, my legs, my quads in particular, really started hurting. That they started feeling like knives were jabbing into them. So going down hills became a lot more difficult. Going uphill, no problem. Going downhill, lots of stabbing. So I started slowing down some. And I remember going all the way up to mile 40, which is the biggest climb. It's called Bald Mountain. And I have a wonderful picture. I have to post it, but that they take of you at the top of Bald Mountain, which basically you come up the trail and then you're on some rocks and they take a picture overlooking everything. And it was just absolutely gorgeous. And I made it there in time that it was still daylight, so you could see. There's some people it took too long, and it was nighttime by the time they came. I remember going down. It was probably the most technical and steepest and probably one of the scariest parts because it went from up to like a sharp down, like huge, huge boulders that you're kind of hopping down. And it was very, very steep. So if you tripped at all, you were just going to get smashed by boulders and you were going to keep tumbling down because it was so steep. Made it out of that. And that's when the night started coming. And I was excited I was definitely excited about the night because the night was the first time I'd be running through it. And I've done some, early morning runs where I'm running with a headlamp or through the light of the full moon. And I always thought it was just your senses are always so much more heightened. And I remember that kept going, except on mile 55. So from mile 50 to 55 was probably the only point in the race where I was so frustrated and I just needed a mental reset. It's where it probably took the longest once I got to mile marker 55 just to regroup because my light was dimming, the quads were in so much pain, and the footing was so rocky that I kept falling. In fact, I fell twice off the edge of the cliff. So it was, imagine a 2-foot path. On one side you have the mountain on one side, and then it drops off on the other side. It was kind of like imagine like a ramp. So it wasn't like a cliff to your doom, but you would roll down this side of the mountain and could definitely get hurt. So I fell twice stepping off of that. Luckily I caught myself. And then another 2 times with just fell flat on my face. And it was at that moment that I was like, man, I just got to get to the end. Finally, when I got there, I remember I saw my dad. My dad had kind of hiked down a bit, and I already knew it was him. And he was, I don't know, he had hiked in like maybe a mile to make sure that I was okay. And I was taking a little longer than I had than was anticipated. But I I remember when I saw him from afar, I was like, oh, this is definitely him, because I know him. I know how he is. And so then, we started making our way all the way back up. And when I got to the aid station, I remember just seeing my son. He had fallen asleep. It was like, I think it was like I don't know, it was like maybe 2 in the morning, maybe 1 in the morning. He had fallen asleep on one of those beach chairs. And there were all these blankets on top of him because it was cold. And my wife is trying to tell me, hey, what do you need? I'm definitely mentally a little bit lost, a little bit frustrated. I'm trying to figure out what I need. I changed some stuff, and I said, I just got to get out of here. And that was the first time that I took the hiking poles. And man, what a difference, because now I had something to balance on. So I could run, but whenever I stepped weird, instead of falling on the floor, instead of falling off the edge of the cliff, I had the poles to actually help keep me up. So it was a big shift in mindset and confidence, because now I had some support. And isn't that the way life is? When we have that support, when we have that stability in life, we're able to deal with more obstacles confidently. And even the things that used to shake us now don't, because we have some of that. And that's exactly what I felt in the race. And that's why, to me, I like doing these races, because they teach me so much about life. They teach me so much about growth and how to deal with adversity. So I remember going through that, and then I think it was 35. So that meant at about 65, I had Joaquin come and join me, who did a phenomenal job. He just kind of let me be, and he was just there supporting me and just making sure I was good. Because on these races, I think it depends on the race, but a lot of times they'll let you have a pacer to help get you through this. So it'll be somebody there, one of your friends, or somebody that'll be running with you, and they can go with you throughout the whole thing. They can't take stuff for you. In other words, they can't be your mule, they can't take your water and all that stuff, but they can run with you. So it's just knowing that you have that person shoulder to shoulder, walking and hiking and running and getting you to the finish. And he originally was going to do like 10 miles with me, and mentally I was okay with that. And then he got excited, and he's like, all right, I'll do another station. He did 14 miles. And so at this point, I'm like, all right, he's already done it. And then he's like, all right, I'm going to do one more. I'm like, that's going to put you at 20 miles. Are you sure you're good with that? And he's like, yeah. I feel good. And man, he did such a great job. I attribute a lot of getting through a lot of these low points just by having him there. He didn't have to do much. It was just the simple fact of having him there. And again, this goes back, makes me think of how powerful is it when we have those people in our life that we can count on. They don't have to say much. Just knowing that they're there just brings a certain level of peace and confidence, and knowing that, if things were to go bad, I have somebody there that's got my back. And sure enough, that was the role that he played. And there were these bursts of energy that I would get, especially in the uphills, that it didn't seem like I had run 80 some miles. It didn't seem like I had been running for 24 plus hours at that point. I just would get these bursts and would just run up the mountain. For whatever reason, going up, I felt amazing. But then whenever I had to go downhill, not so much fun. There's some questions that people ask. Well, what do you do for food? What do you do for? You have aid stations. Each aid station has some food, has some fluids for you to take, so that's covered. And the next question that people ask is, what happens if you have to pee or poop? Well, that's what nature's for. I estimate in kind of doing the math, I probably stopped to pee about 78 times. I peed a lot. I pooped 4 times, and all of it was in the wild. I didn't go to one single bathroom. So just just FYI, because I know that's a question that people ask. I remember finishing, or as Christian says, whenever I'd come into the aid stations and Joaquin was there, she'd ask me, hey, what do you need? I'd tell her, and then Christian told me, she's like, when she asked Joaquin on the last one, she goes, how are you feeling? He looked at her and said, I'm done. I'm done. So that's it. He had put in more than was asked of him, work, and I'm deeply, deeply grateful and humbled by the fact that he did that, and I'm grateful beyond belief that he was there, um, and was able to help me out on such an amazing uh, achievement, let's call it, discovery, exploration, adventure that I got the opportunity to do. And I know without a doubt, a lot of that comes from the simple fact of having him there. So thank you, Joaquin. Um, then what happens? I have 15 more miles by the time Joaquin stopped. And at that moment, Christian tells me, she goes, I'm going to pace you. She goes, I'm going to pace you for at least one to the next aid station, which was 7 miles away, 7.5 miles away. I said, okay. So at the beginning, we kind of walked through it, and it was, I'll be honest, I hadn't seen that side of my wife in a long time, and she was just like playful, but like encouraging and funny, and she just kept egging me on and saying, okay, look, she'd come up with different ways to get me to pick up the pace, and I had, the point of me sharing that is I had a lot of fun having her get me to the next aid station. I say get me because my legs were hurting. And I remember thinking there was a point towards the end of getting to that last aid station. And each aid station has a cutoff. If you don't make the cutoff, you don't leave that aid station. And I started doing the math because I felt we were going so slow, and I got deeply afraid. I thought I wasn't going to be able to finish the race. I thought they were going to cut off the time. I was taking so long. And something inside of me just kicked in, and I just started going. And it was, luckily, to get to that aid station was an uphill, and I just started running. And I started leaving her behind. She eventually caught up, and she's like, what got into you? And I was like, I was afraid I wasn't going to make it. We've come all this way. Everyone's done all this work. And for me to try and save energy and then not make it because I was trying to save energy, it brought me back to the story of my senior year in high school. On the track, state championship. No, it wasn't state championship. It was senior year at the University of Florida. That's where the meet was. And there was this guy that was just way out of everyone's league. And my pacing was on point. I remember I was running the 2 mile, and I was on pace just to break 10 minutes. And it would have been the first time doing it. And I remember there was this guy from a school called Tampa Jesuit, and he was running low 9s. And the rule is in track, and on these big meets, if you get lapped, you have to step off. That's the end of your race. And I remember I was on pace, and I could hear him coming. And something inside of me said, oh, just keep your pace. You got to keep your pace, because then you're going to mess up your pacing, in which case then you're going to die at the end. But what I failed to see was, if he catches you, you're done. And by the time I realized that it was too late, he caught me, And it was the only race that I ever got lapped in, even though I was going to do the best time ever. And it just happened to be because he was just so far ahead. He was so far in a different league that he completely knocked me out. And I thought of that moment when I was running the 100-miler, getting to the last station, and I didn't want to be in that position anymore. I didn't want to be lapped and get kicked off the race. So I picked it up, and when I got there, I asked, what's the cutoff? And the lady told me, and I had maybe another 30 minutes before the cutoff time. So, talk about a huge sign of relief. And then Christian said, you know what? I'm going to go in. I'm going to do the last one with you. And part of me wanted to kind of say, well, I want to do this last one by myself, but there was probably the more rational part of me took over and said, there's nobody I would rather finish with than with my wife. And I'm glad I got to share that experience with her, because we had some great talks and we got to experience a beautiful part of the course together. And I think one of the things that is kind of etched in my mind is, again, she just kept the pace for me. Whenever I would slow down, she goes, I'm not slowing down. You want to slow down, that's fine, but you better catch up, because this is the pace we need to get to the end. So she would keep the pace, and I'd have to stop, and then I'd have to pick up the pace to try to catch her. And again, it was one of those things that to me meant the world, to have her there. And I still remember finally making a turn on the road and seeing the stadium, because the race finishes at a stadium. And I remember saying to her, look, there's the stadium. And I was just trying to hold back my emotions. I was just trying to just not cry, just get to the end. And I remember running, and then my son came running, and I was like, wow, what a finish. What a way to finish. And we had the opportunity of all three of us getting on the track and crossing the finish line together. This definitely goes down as one of the most amazing experiences in my life, and probably one of the most empowering experiences in my life, because I have never known pain like I did then. But I've never come out on the other side of pain when the way I did there. To think that at mile 30, only 30% of the race is done, and your quads are shot, and I have no idea how I'm going to get through that, and to do another 70 miles to the end, and still be able to keep going, still be able to run, still be able to push, and there was get through these episodes of intense stabbing pain through your legs, and to push through that to the point where your body just goes numb. I had never really experienced it to that degree for so long. And I know without a doubt it was just everyone's support, prayers, cheering, and most of all my crew that was there, that was there mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, for anything that I needed. So that's my story. Hopefully you enjoyed the telling of the experience, and I'd love to hear if you have any questions. I would have loved to make this video a lot more exciting, throw in some footage from the race, but I didn't take any footage in the race. I really made it a point to be in the moment and to make all my efforts and all my focus be right then. And I will tell you, when you have that amount of pain is a wonderful tool to bring you into the moment. So Once again, thank you so much for joining me on this journey. Hopefully you enjoyed the story. Thank you for all your prayers, support, and here's to the next one. Take care.